There is no denying the fact that the development field has the highest paying jobs and the most diverse roles as well. Many of us might not have started their careers in the development sector, but it is always possible to do a mid-career transition. This video is for all those who want to start their career in the development sector, as well as for anyone who already might be a part of this industry, as this industry always requires a mid-career retraining. Hello everyone and welcome to this video by Intellipaat. In this video, I will be talking about web development, its roadmap, as well as a roadmap to become a full-stack developer. Let's take a look at the agenda. First, we have what is web development. Second, we have who is a web developer. Third up, how to get started with web development. Fourth, roadmap to become a full-stack developer. Fifth, conclusion. Before we begin, please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for regular updates from us.
Let us take a look at our first agenda, which is what is web development. Developers create web pages and applications for the intranet, a private network, or the internet during the web development phase. It does not always concentrate on a website's design. Instead, it is mostly concerned with the programming and coding aspect, which is what makes a website work. The creation and upkeep of online pages is referred to web development. And this includes a smattering of ideas from web design, web development, web publishing, and database management. Additionally, it covers a variety of web design tools and methods, such as utilizing text editors to manually code websites, Dreamweaver to create web pages, blogging websites to update blogs, and more. All of the online tools and websites that we frequently use, from basic and straightforward web pages to complicated web applications and social media platforms, from multiple online shopping web pages to even content management systems, are all results of web development. Let's take a look at our next agenda and understand who is a web developer. A programmer who uses the client-server architecture to create worldwide web applications is known as a web developer. The apps typically use any general-purpose programming language on the server and HTML, CSS, and JavaScript on the client. Client and server connections are conducted using HTTP. A web developer may focus on either server-side applications, that is back-end development, or client-side applications, that is front-end web development. Let's take a look at our next agenda, that is how to get started with web development. You need to be familiar with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to work as a web developer. It's also advised to become familiar with CSS and CSS frameworks. You can communicate with computer languages by developing these core web development abilities, which will provide the framework and reasoning for do so. Now there are 5 key steps to get started with web development. Let's take a look. Firstly, we have learn the principles of web development. Learning web development principles such as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is the best way to start on the path to become a web developer. Coding boot camps are now widely used by aspiring web developers to accelerate their learning. Because they are brief, immersive, and focused on results and employment, coding boot camps have thrived. Their aim is to build job-ready abilities as quickly as possible, making them an increasingly worthwhile investment for aspiring web developers. According to the employment website Indeed, 4 out of every 5 businesses in the US have employed a coding bootcamp. In truth, the benefits of coding bootcamps in the real world are becoming more and more obvious. For starters, the sector of web development naturally draws professionals from all other industries, many of whom are transitioning mid-career and for whom finding a clear and effective route to skill extension is of utmost importance. Employers also place a greater priority on skills and experience than education, putting those who can demonstrate their abilities on an even playing field with developers who have a college degree. It's crucial to remember that web developers, more than those in most other professions, must be dedicated to lifelong learning in order to keep up with modifications to programming languages, tools, and trends. This necessitates mid-career retraining, whether or not it is the field of job you initially entered. Next up we have select a development-related specialization. You will need to select a specialty or specialization as you continue to develop your skills. What kinds of web developments are there though? All web developers fall into one of the three categories. Firstly, we have the front-end developer. The client side of web development refers to any area of the website or app that users interact with. A front-end developer works on this area. This encompasses the structure, look, and usability of a website. Then we have the back-end developer. A back-end developer is a web developer who works on the server side of the websites. This focuses on the functionality of a website and may include databases, servers, networks, hosting, and other things. And the last category is the full stack developer. A full stack developer works on both the front end and back ends of a website and is knowledgeable about both. Next tip is mastering key programming languages for web development. Regardless of your area of specialization, you will need to learn how to code and be proficient in a number of different programming languages in order to construct and design websites. The fundamental tools used in practically every element of web development come from three families of computer languages. Firstly, we have HTML, that is HyperText Markup Language. Then we have CSS, and lastly, JavaScript. Next, we'll talk about taking on projects to hone your web developer abilities. You are prepared to start constructing when you have a solid understanding of the fundamentals of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, as well as a base in programming. You will gain experience by utilizing a constantly expanding range of web developer talents as you proceed. Some of them are technical skills, like programming in Python or SQL for increased programming efficiency, or using version control tools like Git. Start experimenting if you want to strengthen these web development talents. The more you use them, the more proficient you'll get. Web developers can benefit from having a variety of web design abilities, with an awareness that responsive design is perhaps the most important. Web developers benefit from having a thorough understanding of common design ideas, even though they are not normally responsible for the overall site design. Particularly, front-end developers who program the interfaces that users interact with can succeed much more if they have a solid understanding of user-centered design. Next up, we'll talk about creating a web development portfolio. When applying for web development employment, your best tool is a captivating web developer portfolio that highlights your strongest talents. When creating a portfolio that will differentiate itself from the competition, there are three things to bear in mind. First, a variety of web development projects should be included in your web developer portfolio. Your professional portfolio should not include every project you've ever worked on. Instead, it should be a highlight reel of your best work that also illustrates your adaptability. You want to be selective and emphasize your greatest work, but your choice should be sufficiently varied to show that you have a thorough understanding of all the requirements for the job. Now, when applying for web developer jobs, conduct some research about the organization and the position you're seeking to fill. Then, further edit your portfolio, removing samples that are not connected to the position, and highlight your best work. Second, consider what distinguishes you and your work from others. Accentuate your strengths in web development, not simply through the work you put in your portfolio, but also through the way it is laid out. For instance, if you're seeking for design-related positions, your portfolio website should have a strong front end with a wonderful user experience and interface. Additionally, if you're seeking for a position as a web developer, make sure your portfolio is shown on a perfect website. This implies clean code. And lastly, describe your procedure. Employers are considering more than just your work product's quality when making hiring decisions. Don't be hesitant to present each example as a case study, outlining your reasoning and the issue the project was meant to address. Providing context for how your projects were made will help hiring managers and recruiters understand your work and realize that it is more than simply a single solitary project. A key component of succeeding in a position is having excellent communication skills, which you have a fantastic chance to show off here. Let's take a look at our next agenda, that is the roadmap to become a web developer. The first step on the roadmap is selecting a technology. Database administration, the front end, and the back end are all parts of full stack development. The technology you decide to work with depends on you, your needs, and your applications. There are only a few popular technologies that you can work with. Firstly, we have MERN. It is the most well liked and a trending technology, under which we have MongoDB, which is a data focused NoSQL database. Next, Express, which is a Node.js framework that supports get, put, post, and delete operations. After which we have React, which is a JavaScript package used to create single page apps and user interfaces. And lastly, we have Node.js, which is an open source server environment. Next, we have Mean. MERN, which is written in JavaScript, works with React, whereas Mean interacts with Angular. This is the only main distinction between the two. We'll talk about now front-end development. Front-end is the UI, which deals with how interactive and dynamically the website looks overall. Learn everything there is to know about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to master it. Under front-end development, we have HTML, that is HyperText Markup Language. By building a simple website with all the parts begin with applying HTML in its most fundamental form. Play around with tables and forms and try adding images and links to the website to make it more appealing, which will, in turn, help to streamline your work. Next up, we'll talk about CSS. If you're a person who enjoys creativity, you must learn CSS. You can use CSS to add colors to your website, give headers and paragraphs borders, create the navigation bar, alter the icons, font, and text, and do a lot more similar things. Make the website responsive, meaning that it should display properly on all screen sizes. Next, we'll talk about JavaScript. The web's primary programming language is JavaScript. And lastly, under front-end development, we'll talk about frameworks. This is a tool for creating software programs. It consists of code libraries, compilers, and programs that, when combined, allow for the creation of systems or projects. These frameworks enable the reuse of components. Frameworks include React, Angular, Vue, and more. Next, we'll talk about backend development. The server's running code has logic that allows it to send the right data from the client and receive it from the server. It also contains the database, which houses all of the application's data. A server, an application, and a database make up its three components. In this case, developers' code sends data from the database to the browser. Backend engineers write the code that transfers data from the database to the browser. Backend developer requirements include knowledge of programming languages, frameworks, databases, servers, and APIs. Let's talk about programming languages. Backend developers should be familiar with at least one programming language, such as Java, Python, or JavaScript. The ideal option would be JavaScript because it can be used in both the front end and the back end. Frameworks. Frameworks are typically parts or operations used to enhance the efficiency of development. It comprises the tool and module library used to create a website's architecture. The backend frameworks include Express, Django, etc. Next, we'll talk about database. You should be familiar with different DBMS technologies like MongoDB, MySQL, Oracle, SQL Server, etc. It deals with the management and storage of data. Up next, we have server. Clients across a network are systems that offer data, services, or applications. The data and information are exchanged between the client and the server. Lastly, we'll talk about API, that is Application Program Interface. It is a set of established guidelines that permits interaction or serves as a mediator between two applications. Now, the fourth point on the roadmap is database. We can manage data from the database, which is a collection of data. We have relational and non-relational databases. Let's take a look. Relational database systems like MySQL store and handle data. The NoSQL database system, MongoDB, finds key value and graph databases. And lastly, we have VoltDB. It uses memory to store data and adheres to a relational design pattern. Fifth point on the roadmap is version control. Each program gets updated over time when specific libraries are added, which results in the creation of a new version of the application. If you're working on applications, using Git is a very good practice. Git is an open source system where the full code has been present since the beginning. It restores the code and is versatile, safe, and easy to edit. All of the files, including the codebase, are saved in repositories where they may be changed as needed. Anyone can work together and adjust things as needed. Lastly, on the roadmap, we have developing projects. Build some projects after finishing the theory portion to gain experience with web development. When you implement all of a project's front end, back end, and database handling components, you become an expert in web development. As you construct anything, you gain technical knowledge about things like how databases store data, how APIs link the front end to the back end, and other procedures used in web development. Let's take a look at our next agenda, which is roadmap to becoming a full stack developer. Now, if you wish to pursue a career in web development, then you must have extensive knowledge on front end as well as back end development tools and languages. We have already discussed about those in full length in the previous section of this video. Let us now discuss what additional skills and languages you must master to complete your arsenal for becoming a full stack developer. Firstly, we'll talk about some front end frameworks. And top on the list, we have Bootstrap. Bootstrap is an open source toolkit for creating projects that are mobile first and responsive. JavaScript, HTML, and CSS are all used. It makes website design quicker and simpler. It supports JavaScript plugins and provides design templates for forms, buttons, tables, and navigation. Next framework is AngularJS. A structural framework for dynamic web applications is AngularJS. The Google-led open source web framework for JavaScript is supported by a variety of businesses and people. They deal with problems with a one-page application. HTML is accepted for use as a template language. It significantly reduces the amount of coding necessary to data binding and dependency. The next framework we'll talk about is React.js. React.js is a JavaScript library that is maintained by Facebook, a number of businesses, and many other independent programmers. For retrieving quickly changing data that needs to be recorded, React is the best option. For creating user interfaces for one-page apps, it is utilized. It enables users to develop modular user interface elements. The last framework is Vue.js. Another free and open source JavaScript framework for single-page apps and user interfaces is Vue.js. It has a small footprint and offers excellent performance. It offers the greatest features of other frameworks like Angular and React, which makes it the perfect choice for beginning programmers. It is regarded as the framework that is easiest to use nowadays. Now, for full stack development, other programming languages are necessary as well. The majority of the fundamental business operations must be developed in one or more of these programming languages. Therefore, you should be fluent in several of them. We have a list of languages for you to start with, as it is impossible to learn all of them quickly. Firstly, we'll talk about TypeScript. TypeScript is a requirement if you want to study Angular and has recently gained a lot of popularity. It was created and is maintained by Microsoft for the construction of huge apps. For features like type checking, it is always used in conjunction with JavaScript. Next, we'll talk about Python. Python is a high-level multifunctional language. It can be used to build online apps, math, and server scripting on a server. In order to read and modify files, it connects to databases. Python utilizes an interpreter system and was created to be readable. It can also be applied in a functional, procedural, or object-oriented manner. Next, we'll talk about Ruby. Ruby is a dynamic, open-source language that's simple to learn and write code in. It can be used for web applications, servers, system utilities, backups, and database tasks, as well as It places a strong emphasis on productivity and simplicity. Lastly, we have PHP. The most widely used scripting language, PHP, supports HTML embedding. Only servers with PHP installed can interpret PHP scripts. Now we'll talk about a few backend frames. A backend framework is necessary for developers in order to design an application. It is the dynamic application's script side. Let's take a look. First we have Express. Express.js is a web application framework for Node.js. It is a Node.js module. It can be applied to programs built on servers that wait for client connection requests. Single page, multi-page, and hybrid web applications can all use it. It is aggressive, quick, and simple to use. Next we have Node.js. Node.js is a cross-platform open source program that functions on a variety of platforms. It is an environment that allows JavaScript to be run outside of a browser. And lastly, we will talk about Django. Django is a model template view architecture based high-level Python web framework. It is applied to streamline the development of intricate, database-driven websites. It encourages a clean design and is quick. Now let's take a look at some additional skills that you need for full-stack web development. Firstly, we'll have Git, then comes machine learning, after which we have SSH, that is Secure Shell Protocol, after which we have HTTP as well as HTTPS, then Linux command, data structures and algorithms, .NET and ASP.NET framework, and lastly, character encoding. With that, let's conclude. The use of web development as well as full-stack software development has increased recently in practically all sizes of business. This roadmap explains all the fundamental and advanced abilities needed to succeed as a web developer and a full-stack developer. The more skills you learn and adapt to, the better opportunities you get in this field of development. And that's it for this video. Thank you for watching.
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat provides full-stack web development course in collaboration with ENICT IIT Guwahati. The course link of which is given in the description below.